Today on Delay the Decay, I'm joined by Dave Runyon. Dave is Executive Director of City Unite, a Denver-based movement bringing together faith, business, and government leaders to unite around common causes for the good of the city. Dave also helps lead the Colorado Prayer Luncheon, where he gathers leaders to pray for our state and celebrate what's working. He's the co-author of The Art of Neighboring, and he and his wife Lauren have been married 25 years and have 4 adult kids. Dave, welcome to the show, my friend.
It's great to be here. I should qualify this. They're almost adults. I mean, there's some of them, I don't know. That's always hard to say. 2 in college, 2 in high school. But
okay. So they're early adulting.
They're early adulting, I hope. That's the wish.
That's the wish. Thank you for that. Dave, what's one habit or discipline that you are incorporating into your life, that you're fighting for, that is helping you live just a genuinely healthy life?
Yeah. Well, this is like a really pragmatic one. A friend of mine suggested I do this a year or 2 ago. I started just to weigh myself every day. Like I was noticing, like I was kind of going through these like fluctuations of different things, and he said, "Hey, Dave, you want to do one simple thing that'll just help you a lot." And so he just said, just weigh yourself every day. And that way, when you like put on 5 pounds, you actually know it. And you're more likely to do something about it and to change some small things instead of getting to a place where you got to change something massive. And so it's really basic, but that's just one small thing I've been doing that's been helping me out.
That's super practical. And it isn't as easy as it sounds, because we all want to kind of keep our head in the hole until it's too late. So thanks for that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that principle is true about most things. If you can get real concrete self-awareness of where you're at, it actually helps you make minor course corrections instead of big ones. And so I think that you could apply that principle to a lot of different things.
Yeah. We have, our life and our ministry has circled around each other over probably the last 20 years. And we've never really been able to, connect in a deep and meaningful way. We have a couple of times. I've ran into you at a couple of funerals. One man that was just probably the primary mentor in my life, and a memorial service of a man that I would guess was probably your primary mentor in that. So it's sad, but grateful for men like Chuck Cook and Don Reverts, for sure.
Without a doubt. We should figure out a way to run into each other in better circumstances.
Yes, we should. And we will. And we will. Yes. My respect and esteem for you is off the charts. I know so many people that know you closely, including we won't play the name game here on the internet.
Well, that's fine. But I will say this: you should consider your sources very carefully.
Yeah.
I will say that.
I'm going to put their names in the ChatGPT and see what I can learn about them. And
Good call.
Then I might rejudge you after that. You were in vocational ministry. You were a pastor for 18 years?
10 years.
10 years. 10 years.
10 years. Before that, I was a high school teacher. And a lot of people don't know this. I taught high school for 4 years and coached baseball, and I was very content. I thought I had a great plan for my life, and then I fell backwards into being a pastor for 10 years. And then, the last 15 years, I've been running a small nonprofit here in Denver that helps people connect together.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to let you get away with those comments. We're going to go backwards a little bit. So did you what did you teach in high school?
Taught U.S. history.
Okay. Was that your major in college?
Yeah. I was a business major for a while, and then I went and did an internship one summer and got on a plane and decided I wanted to be a high school teacher. And so I was, I just had one of those moments where you realize how much time you spend at work and the value. I got really lucky, but when I was in my college years, I got a clear picture of I need to find something that really fits well with my gifts and that's life-giving, so that it doesn't feel like work is a grind. And so that's what led me into teaching and coaching, and I really enjoyed it.
My story is the opposite. I went to school to be a teacher, and a coach. And in my third year, I pivoted and went business. And
Wow.
and I'm not sure. I'm not sure that my motives were all that pure. It was, I decided I wanted to make a lot of money, and I figured I could
Yeah.
probably make more money and lose more money, as it turned out, in business than teach in school.
Yeah.
How did you pivot from high school teacher to pastor? What did that look like? How did you move backwards?
Somebody somebody asked me to preach for them because they got sick, and I did it. And then they came back to me a few months later and asked me if I'd be the consider being the teaching pastor at their church. And so it was just an open door that I decided to walk through, and it was good. But there's pros and cons to both of those roles, and so I enjoy. I'm very grateful that I got to spend a season doing both.
And when you transitioned from being a pastor, did you go right into the City Unite stuff, or what was God calling you into at that time?
Yeah, I was a pastor for 10 years, worked at a couple of great churches, and then I just started I'm an angsty person vocationally. I just get no matter what I'm doing, I get angsty. But I was just wrestling with how much of my time was being spent thinking about that hour and 10 minutes every Sunday versus a lot of things that were in my heart as far as helping people go out and engage and make an impact in the community. I started dreaming about having, what would it look like if congregations all across our city were focused on the same thing, and that we were connected together, and dreaming about how could we move the needle in the city together, especially in relation to the poor. Mm-hmm. And so that captured my heart and led me to doing City Unite. Again, I'm so grateful for the churches I worked with, and I'm really grateful for the people that do that full time. It just wasn't the sweet spot for me. And so what I found is helping build bridges, convening people, and then helping mobilize them around really specific issues in our city is what I feel like that I was made to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember a moment in time, Dave, where you knew that you had a heart for the poor? What shaped that heart?
Yeah, I think we're all wired to live on behalf of others, and so for me, I've just always had this question in the back of my mind going, how can I use what I have for the benefit of others? And so that's just been a core value that my parents gave me, and that building block is what led me to do a lot of what I'm doing today.
Okay. What are some of the initiatives or issues that you had in mind when you decided to embark on this journey? You had poor people in mind, but did you also have this uniting business, churches, and government?
I had this conviction that the sleeping giant of volunteerism was sitting in congregations all across our city every single week, and they just needed to be mobilized and kind of unified. And so I started to gather with other faith leaders and dream about what could we do together that we could never do alone. I started to have these, what it was really important, we didn't know our city as well as we should have. And so we started to invite in civic leaders. And so we would invite in the mayor or the police chief or the city manager. And we would just simply say, hey, tell us a little bit about your story. How'd you end up here? If you ever get disillusioned with politics, which it's very easy to do these days, one of the best things you could do, the lower you go, the better it gets, in my opinion, in civics life. And so when you start to find the city manager or the assistant city manager and just say, hey, tell us how did you get here? Why did you decide to do this with the majority of your working hours in your life? It's so encouraging. It is so encouraging to know there are great people out there at the local level who have a story, and they have a desire to serve. They have a belief in civic service and in working towards the betterment for all that is really beautiful. And so we started to have these conversations with leaders, and we would invite in the civic leader. We would hear their story, which was encouraging, and then we would always just say, hey, if you had a magic wand and could change something in our community, what would you change? Or we would ask them, what's keeping you up at night? What for you do you see? What do you get a lot of calls for that you don't know what to do with? And so we would ask questions like that, trying to learn what are the systemic issues in our community that if we were going to gather people around those, we would go after those well. And so that led us to, we had a police chief at one point that just said, hey, if you care about the long-term health of our community, go after the third graders in the hardest to reach or the most under-resourced schools. And that was a huge initiative for us, was thinking about how do we go into the most under-resourced schools and just show up and, one, encourage and support the teachers. And then that often led to like a building, issue that they were having, or tutoring or PTA or any of those different things. And so those have been, the work that we've done with schools has been one of like the highest and best uses of our time and what we've been able to do.
Dave, were you involved or are you involved with Wiz Kids? Was that?
I'm not personally involved. I'm just a huge fan of what they do. That's an outpouring. My mentor, Don Reverts, who you mentioned earlier, was involved with the founding of that organization. And so I've just been a friend of theirs and a big cheerleader for the work that they're doing here in the Denver metro area.
Yeah, and I know that it's risky here because there's so many good organizations you're involved in, but just want to give a shout out to Wiz Kids. What do they do? I mean, it's in the context of working with poor families.
Yeah, they bring in, they match up volunteers from just out in the community, people in the private sector, for 1 hour of tutoring a week. And so you get to go in and you meet a kid, and Save Our Youth does this. There's a lot of other great organizations that do this, but you get to connect with a kid for the course of that entire school year. And it's basic learning stuff. It's mostly around reading and different kind of like low level stuff that even I could probably help a kid do. And so, and you get to walk with that kid, you get to know them, you get to know their family. It's an incredible organization.
Mm-hmm. You talked about thank you for that. You talked about bringing together the church, the government leaders, business, and you talk about these ideological food fights. How do you avoid that? How did you navigate that or mediate and collaborate with these three different entities?
We just find that if you can get clear on a cause, then you can let anybody who plays ball want that way. If you want to go after this and you believe that like we should go after the schools that are in the highest need, and you have a heart for that, and you want to play ball, then we can put aside the differences and say we care about this with kids or with homeless families or with refugees or whatever it happens to be. So we've just found we go in knowing and being honest about, hey, we think differently about a lot of different issues here in this room, but we all care about this. We all care about homeless families, and so we're going to go after this together, and we're going to take our unique knowledge bases from the private sector, the civic sector, the faith and nonprofit sector. We're going to bring the best of those to go after this issue together. And so we just go in like naming that we don't agree on everything, and then working to move on from there.
Yeah, I love that. I don't know I'm certain you don't know this about me, but when I lived and worked in Denver, I volunteered at the Samaritan's House, and then I also was on the board of the Colorado Coalition of the Homeless.
Wow.
Back in the day when John Parvinsky was there. I don't know if he's still there or not. But yeah, just organizations doing great work, and they need volunteers, and they need money as well.
Yeah.
I think about the Colorado Prayer Luncheon, and where that's coming up here in April.
May 1st.
In May of 2026, is how many people do you expect to be at that luncheon?
Yeah, somewhere between 1,200, 1,500 people.
Okay, just a small gathering of people. And and who is speaking this year, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, Joel Klatt from Fox Sports is going to be there this year. And so he's got an amazing story. He was the quarterback here at CU for a long time and is now the lead college football analyst for Fox Sports. And so I'm excited for people to be able to hear him and hear some of his story.
Mm-hmm. And how does what is your why behind the Colorado Prayer Breakfast? How does that unite with the City Unite initiative?
We try to create a space each year where people from all those different circles can come in, no matter where they're at, no matter how they're thinking, and they could come in and be inspired to think about how do they use what they have for the benefit of others. And so there's a huge focus on each year. This year we're going to be talking about mentoring and pointing out great organizations like the ones we just talked about. And so we also bring in the governor will speak each year, and the mayor, and we'll ask them some of those questions about, tell us what do you see? What do you see when you look out across? Where are you encouraged? Where do you see that work needs to be done? And so we use it as a platform to have everybody who's in the room be able to hear from these people that are in really important positions of leadership. And then we just ask and say, hey, show us the city and the state through your eyes.
So good. And one of the things that I most appreciated about it, I did not go last year. I went the year before. I think it was the year before when it was about when the governor or when the mayor of Denver spoke, and then you had a Denver Broncos player and his wife speak, and they were just talking about how there were some homeless people that set up camp basically right outside their neighborhood. And what they did is they actually didn't push them out, but they invited them in. And it was such a, not that everybody needs to respond that way, but hearing stories like that and celebrating those type of stories it's really compelling.
Yeah, and I think there's so much bad news out there. There's so much of the stuff that people are angry about. We try to use that as a time each year, and I try to do this just in my work in general, of highlighting and pointing out where is the good happening in our communities. We need a lot more of that instead of all the other toxic stuff that's lingering around out there online.
Would it be too risky to just give a shout out to just things you've experienced in the last year that are worth celebrating? They don't have to be particular ministries, but just examples of people taking their own initiative, taking the next hard step towards loving their neighbor, if you will.
Yeah, I've watched my own neighborhood over the last 6 weeks. One of our neighbors passed away at 49, had cancer, and a 7-year-old and his wife are left here. And just watching a community come around a family and individuals in crisis has just been this reminder to me of like, we need to get back to some of the simple things of like knowing who our neighbors are and then being able to show up and that's a really dramatic example, but sometimes small things make a big difference. And I think people want this, they just don't have the time for it. And so it's really easy for people to get so tied up into all the other things that they have going on with work and family and club sports and all those different things that you don't even know the people's names who live right around you. And so I think I've just been reminded over the last 6 weeks and walking with my own personal neighborhood and just seeing some really beautiful things transpire. And so that's the first thing that came to mind as you said that. The other thing I think that's really encouraging right now, one of the stories that needs to be told is in the Denver metro area, all of a majority of the nonprofits that are faith-based and that are serving people in the city have all the executive directors have started to meet together on a regular basis just to share best practices. And I find this too in the private sector. Being at the top of some of these organizations can be really lonely, and it can really push you towards living in a world where nobody holds up the mirror to you because everybody works for you. And there's a lot of dangerous stuff to that. You can end up going home, when the whole world revolves around you, then you bleed that out into all your other relationships. And so finding time to connect with peers and to do stuff. So like to have all these executive directors who are all running large organizations, starting to meet together, to have these small groups where they're able to process, here's what's going on. I've got to fire a key person, and I've been putting this off forever, and having like a group of friends help talk through, like, hey, here's the best way to do that. Here's how you can show up and do that in the healthiest way possible, or just the feeling the pressure of being responsible for employing that many people. It's a unique thing that having peers and having people in the same season of life that are outside your organization is massively valuable. And so to watch this thing, grow and develop in our city has been really, really encouraging.
That's so cool, Dave. I was just thinking about collaboration, which is what that is, and the opposite of collaboration, I think, is competition. Is where we see others, other nonprofits as competition, for the same maybe donation dollars, and that's a pathway to isolation. And we see it in churches as well, right? When pastors don't collaborate with other pastors because they maybe see them as a threat or competition, that's a dangerous place to be.
Yeah, for sure.
So it takes a lot of humility for those executive directors to do that, and shout out to those men and those women. Does it come up north at all? Is there nonprofits in northern Colorado that are a part of this that you know of?
This has been mostly just Denver Metro right now.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I think there'd be a need for that up here for sure. So, Dave, you were City Unite was a thing long before COVID, but it was certainly a thing during COVID, and there was more opportunities than ever probably to unite people that wanted to maybe stay in their own camps. And one of the ways that I saw City Unite engaging that I benefited from is that I was a lead pastor of a church during the pandemic, and there's very few things that happen in our life that we could say it's a first for all of us. And it was a first for all of us, and we're all wondering, what do we do? What do we do? How do we live out our convictions and at the same time cooperate with the governing authorities? And you put together these, I think it was weekly at some point. It might have went to every other week. But talk to me about that. How did that even come to pass? That you said, I think I'm going to do a call with the governor and all the pastors in the state.
Yeah, well, one, I never had that thought. But, during that first 6 to 12 months during COVID, there was all of the different restrictions for businesses and churches. And I think our health department were doing the best that they could. I think that looking back, there's certainly a lot of things that they would do differently. That's another podcast we'll talk about someday. But our governor reached out because of the prayer luncheon, because of some of the other work I do of like helping faith communities work together. To his credit, reached out to me and just said, "Hey, listen, I want to figure out a way to open up the lines of communications with the faith leaders in our state." Mm-hmm. And he said, "I'll give as much time and effort as you want to this." But is there any way that we could start to set, we just did it once to start with. Could you help set up a call and invite the primary leader of as many faith communities as possible onto a call so that I can just talk with them and have Q&A? Because this is going to be a really hard thing. And he was doing this with different key people in the business community and stuff like that. But he's the only one I know of that did this with the faith community. And so everything we did was at his request. And so he just said, I think that the more that the lines of communication are open between our office and between faith leaders, and it'll help us navigate this going down the road. And so, we would have over 1,000 faith leaders from the state of Colorado on these calls. And everything was always changing. Remember, every other week, it's like there's like something new. Yeah. And it ended up being a really incredible example of how the faith and the government community can work together. It wasn't always easy. There was times where people were upset, but he wanted to hear those out. And you remember those calls. On all those calls, he would just open it up and just say, "All right, we're just going to do some Q&A, some random Q&A, and just let people vent if they wanted to, or ask questions, or get clarification." And it ended up being a great tool. And to his credit, as things continued to go on, and they were trying to live in this, gray area of like, what do we do with businesses and churches? Like, to his credit, like he changed some of the significant things that the state and cities were asking congregations to do, because he had real-time feedback from a lot of the faith leaders. So, that's one of those things that when you're doing this work, you can't plan for it, but when they happen, you're excited that you can be in that space.
Yeah. Well, thanks for doing that. In the same way that the Colorado Prayer Luncheon highlights people that are doing important, extraordinary things, that brings encouragement to people like me. That brought encouragement. It brought encouragement in a surprising way to see the humanity of Governor Polis, a man who probably has different ideologies than me, who cared about people in this, just like me. And so it just really was good for my heart in many ways. So during the post-COVID, there was a mental health challenge or mental health crisis. From your vantage point across church and business and civic leaders, what are some of the most practical ways that Christians can respond to the mental health crisis? Do you feel like there is a mental health crisis or challenge today?
Without a doubt. I mean, that's become very, very clear. And one of the ways that you know that is like, it's so hard to find like a counselor or a therapist right now. Everybody is just like booked out, especially anybody good. They've never been busier. The demand of people who are going like, hey, something's off and I want some help to figure this out is off the charts. Mm-hmm. And so, one of the ways that I think is the most interesting is I think the private sector has a lot of potential for impact in this area. And I've been around a lot of employers who have started to think creatively. They've seen this happen and they've started to offer, as one of their benefits is to say, hey, if you have X amount of money each month that we want to contribute to you if you decide to find a therapist or a counselor or somebody like that. And so just giving permission, and even, they're not necessarily paying for the whole thing, but they're helping out a little bit. One, it takes some of the shame and stuff off of that. And number two, it shows incredible, an incredible heart from the employers that are doing this. They're seeing what's going on. They want their employees to be as healthy as possible. And they're saying, you know what? This is something that I just want to be able to put on the table and that I just want to be able to make available for my people. And so that's been one of the real encouraging ways that I've seen people addressing this and trying to walk alongside of people.
Yeah, that's a great idea. This is unscripted, but I want to talk about it, and maybe it's something that the city will unite around. But I have somebody very close to me who has a severe mental illness, psychosis, where this person has been in and out of jail, the prison system, and is back in there right now. And he, from my perspective, he needs help mentally. He needs help. Actually, throwing him in a jail cell makes it worse for him. Now, I'm a big believer in the law and to be able to live in a civilized culture where there are law enforcement officers and that type of thing. But everybody can't be treated the same. And one of the things that's broken in this state is the penal system. We're what's on the slate right now is to build more prisons, where there's no money going towards building mental facilities, like zero. And I don't know how to fix that. It makes me want to be involved. I think that's a good response, but not quite sure how to be involved. So
Yeah.
you don't even need to respond to that, but it is just
Well,
talk.
I will just say you're describing a massive societal crisis, and you've been around long enough where you remember, the mental institution system, and that we used to have lots of facilities around. And there was a lot of corruption. There was a lot of dysfunction in a lot of those mental institutions and systems. And there was an outcry to say, like, this isn't any way to treat people. And so most of those, the funding for those, went by the wayside, especially the ones that were operated by the states and different things like that. Those mental health institutions don't exist anymore. And what's happened is our cops have become the first responders on a lot of mental health situations, and our jails have become the new mental health institutions for a portion of the people.
Yes.
And it's not working. And we all know it's not working. And nobody has cracked the code on this. And so I think the thing that you're observant to and you're experiencing with your friend is something that has befuddled our society right now. And it'd be great to see somebody or group of people start to experiment and to try to work our way out.
Yeah, that's good. All right, we're going to pivot, David, and talk about this best practices framework, because it's not a separate discussion. It's really how companies, especially faith-driven companies, can make a greater impact with their employees and in their community. And you wrote this document called the Best Practices Framework. Your best practices framework says that most faith-driven owners want impact. I've seen that to be true. They want impact, but they don't know how to build the structures or the processes that will change and shape their culture. So for a business owner that's listening, would you mind if we just walked through these best practices at a very high level? And
Sure.
maybe
And
starting
let me share a little context to this too.
Please.
So when I left my role working for the church and started this new nonprofit, the funding came from two business owners. And so I would just go and spend time at their companies helping them think through community, and start off just thinking about community impact. How do I help you and your employees serve out in the city? Then it bled into employee care. And so I spent 7 or 8 years with both of these companies, helping the owners dream about, how do you have an impact? How could you really make a difference in the community? How could you make a difference in the lives of your employees? And I think almost every employer that I spend time with wants this, but very few are intentional about how to do it. And so that for me has been the light bulb just went on. I saw the power that employers have in changing the lives of the people that work for them and changing the lives of people who are out in the community. And so I've spent a lot of time. And then I started to meet other business owners and people. It doesn't need to be business owners. Anybody that has any kind of influence inside their company can implement a lot of these things and can take some of these best practices and begin to implement them. And I just encourage. I mean, there's a document here that you can share with other people if you want to off this podcast. But I just encourage people to think about, do one of these for the year. You don't have to do all of these. Just pick one that you're going to do in the course of the next 12 months and think about implementing this. Or maybe you have a different idea that's even better. And just all these things that we have a thought about doing but never get around to doing. It's just a tool to help people get into action and to leverage their company for significant impact.
Dave, you've talked about the importance of an organization being mission driven. What does that mean, to be mission driven, and why is it important?
I think every employer needs to get clear on, why do they really exist? Is the end game to make just to have the biggest bottom line possible and create, be able to provide for yourself and your own family, and hopefully that the people that are working for you can provide them for themselves? That's great. But most people that I know that have done that and gotten to the top feel that they're left wanting in some way. They keep asking like, I wonder what else I could do with what I've been given to really make an impact. And so for me, mission driven is where you start to think beyond just the bottom line, and you start to think about impact for an organization and for a group of employees.
Yeah. And is that being mission driven? Is that always outside the four walls of the business, or does that include our employees part of that mission as well?
No, I mean, employees are a massive part of that. When I first got into this work, I remember I did a habitat build and with a company. And one of the beautiful things about this is you get people at every level of the company serving together and working together. And I remember the CFO was side by side with one of the frontline employees. It was with a trailer company, a trailer leasing company. And they're out there and they're building this house together. And the CFO is just going on and on about how incredible this is going to be for this family and how much it's going to change their life and how expensive everything's are. And the frontline guy was like, yeah, this is going to be amazing. And then later had a conversation with the CFOs like, hey, like I actually could qualify to live in that house. And it made the employer go, wow. Like maybe instead of going out and just focusing on things outside first, maybe like us really getting clear on how our employees are doing, what their lives are like, how much we're paying them, what kind of benefits they have. Maybe one of the best things you can do to start with is to do it at home before you take it on the road. And so that was a huge light bulb moment for me. So some of the things on this best practice sheet are just focused on how do you create a culture in your own company and care for your employees, and then go outside and begin to think about community impact.
Mm-hmm. You've already accidentally, I think, given us a couple of ideas, like set money aside for people to get help with counseling, to do a project, engage in a mission locally with your employees. Yeah. And I really appreciate you saying just take one of the frameworks and just do it. Just pick one. But what's a couple of low-hanging fruit practices it's a company that has they have kingdom intentions. It really sounds like a good idea, but they don't have the structures. They're not set up to even know how to do this, to bring their employees together. Yeah. What's the best next step that somebody that has the intention and the desire, what would be next step for them to take?
I mean, I think one of the best things you can do is create some kind of relational structure inside your company. People don't leave jobs; they leave people. They either leave somebody who's a peer with them in the organization or somebody up above, and a lot of times it's because of a lack of relationship. There's not enough relationship to endure a hard dynamic of what's going on. And so just creating time for each person that has direct reports, that once a month that they're going to spend half an hour or a meal with each of their direct reports, with work not being the primary objective. Mm-hmm. With the primary objective being like, I want to listen, I want to know what's going on in your life and your world, and being able to have creating a context for some kind of just general relationship is one of the best things that employees can do.
What would be another one? What would be another one?
I think one of the highest and best ways to do this is by doing intentional or second chance hiring. Making it a point to actually go out and to hear, to make hires with people who might have the competency, but their resume suggests otherwise. And so I've done a lot of work with matching people coming out of the Department of Corrections with employment opportunities, or there's a bunch of different organizations in our town that help people get back on their feet after experiencing homelessness. And so one of the best things you want to talk about something that'll change the culture of your company and change somebody's life. It's around intentional or second chance hiring. It's one of the best things that people do. And it's hard. It's hard and it's messy and it's beautiful all at the same time.
Well, I'm just listening to and feeling what an employer or an entrepreneur might be feeling right now, and hearing is give somebody a second chance that has no skills in this area.
Or not necessarily that they have no skills, but they might have something on their resume where they just go, they had a gap for 2 or 3 years because they were out of the workforce. And so it's not necessarily like taking somebody that doesn't have the competency. It's giving people a chance. There's a lot of jobs out there that everything is taught on the job. And so you're not coming in with some high level skill that you have to have. But just looking for opportunities, like a good job. This is the one thing I've learned from being in kind of the social sector space for a long time, nonprofit space. A good job is the antidote to poverty. Everything else is just helping people get by. But when they get a good job, it's the one thing that they can use to springboard into a new season of life. And so that is like, it takes a lot of intentionality and a calling to be able to stick with that and do it. I'll give you a lower level one. Just go find one nonprofit organization and get to know the leadership there. And instead of doing the thing where you're like, all right, we're going to go and sponsor, these 10 golf tournaments each year or this gala or whatever, like pick one nonprofit and really get to know them and walk with them and go deep with them. I think just having a nonprofit partner, and I've seen it happen over and over again where leaders begin to become friends, they begin to learn from each other. That's one of the best practices that might be a little bit lower bar than starting down the intentional hiring road.
I love it. So helpful. Dave, what would you, just any last words that you would have for my audience, that is particularly those who are entrepreneurs, they're building a business. They do have an ambition. They have something that they're making or producing or building to help make the life of others better, but they're not yet mission forward, or they don't have a missional purpose, even though it sounds like a good idea to them. Like, you gave a couple ideas, but like, how would you just encourage them in these final minutes?
Yeah, I would do like an inventory and just kind of think, what is it that you really care about? What is it when you watch the news that makes you mad? And you're like, man, somebody's got to do something about that. So a lot of times those are the types of things that reveal our calling, are the things that we're really oriented towards. And so I'd encourage people to think through, is there a cause or an organization that you just want to learn a little bit more about? And you don't have to commit to anything, but just get on the path of learning about the things that interest you, or the things that you feel like, man, this is something that's really broken in the world, and I want to actually make a difference with this. People in the private sector have especially people in those leadership positions, have a disproportionate amount of influence, and I just encourage you to think about using that influence for something good, and to really heal some of the brokenness that's in our communities. And so that's one thing I'd share. The other thing I'd share too, Dan, is, when I was a pastor, I had the honor and the privilege, like you, of being with people towards the end of their life. And never once do you ever like spend time with somebody that's coming to the end of their life, and when they talk about the things that they wish they had more time to do, it's very rarely business oriented. Very rarely does somebody go, oh, I just wish we would have closed that deal. Oh, I just wish we my wife and I could have got into our dream house. It's really easy in the moment to live in this, like, with this sense of like, if I just had this, I'd be more content. But when people come to the end of their life and they look back on what really matters, it's always about relationships. It's always about relationships, but oftentimes we don't prioritize our life in that way. And so my encouragement for all the listeners would be to get really clear on what matters and what matters most, and then to orient, to structure your life and your company and your time around that. I think that's one of the people that I run into that feel the most whole, the most fulfilled, genuinely the most content and happy, are people that have gotten clear on that and then they've oriented their lives around it.
Yeah, well, amen to that, Dave. Thanks so much. And then I'm going to just throw a final softball out to you that might be easy, it might be hard. But how would you characterize the life and the legacy of Don Reverts?
Wow. Yeah. So Don was a unique person here in our city. He ran the Denver Leadership Foundation, and he basically, one of my favorite stories about Don was he kind of did an audit of his time and of his life, and got really clear on for him that he was spending the majority of his time in meetings instead of with people. And because of that, he made a radical career change and decided that he would, to start this, he built a nonprofit similar to what I have called the Denver Leadership Foundation. And he wanted to go and spend his time walking with people, being there with them in crisis, being there with them. He was a consultant, coach, pastor, spiritual mentor, all of those different things. And so that's how he spent his time. And, you were at his memorial service, and it was incredible. It was astounding to look back at all of the different organizations that had been birthed because he was willing to walk with people. He's willing to sit over a cup of coffee, over a meal, and just say, what's on your heart? What are you dreaming about? What's God calling you to do? And then encourage them to go and do that. And so for me, Don was a person who was available to other people. He was a great listener. He asked great questions. And I think if we can be those kinds of people, we'll unlock things in people's gifts in really beautiful, wonderful ways that'll help them lead more fulfilling lives. But you've got to actually spend the time. You've got to actually spend the time over a cup of coffee, over a meal. You've got to be with people and willing to listen to people and walk with them in order to have that kind of an impact.
Yeah, thanks for that. My life did not intersect with Don's for probably 40 years, but I knew his legacy, and I knew his impact. And so I went to the memorial service because I knew that I would be encouraged. I knew that I would be spurred on. And there's nothing like hearing stories of men and women who have lived faithfully, sacrificially, and relationally to spur us on. And I've admitted this to my audience before. You might be able to relate. You may not. Like my natural man, I'm a transactional leader. Get things done. And so I really, it's a daily work for me to be present and to value relationships over productivity and efficiency. Yeah. And so it's good to hear stories like that. So, Dave, thank you, brother, for just following your purpose and being a mission-driven man and encouraging so many people. So I bless your ministry and your life and your family. Pray that it just brings many more surprises, good surprises. And I want to encourage my audience that this life that we're living, this imperfect, beautiful life, is a life of direction, not perfection. And then when we just take the next best step towards loving and serving and being present with people, rather than worrying about perfection and worrying about what other people think, but getting outside of ourselves and really loving people. And I've been spurred on today, just been encouraged, Dave. No, not blowing smoke, just encouraged to want to do better and really being present with people and living a mission-driven life. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, I love what you're doing with Delay the Decay, and I'm cheering you on as well.
Thank you very much. And I am going to post this best practices framework at your invitation in the show notes. So I would encourage anybody that would want to use that to download it. And Dave, if people want to follow you or just kind of follow your journey or learn from you, are you out there anywhere?
I'm really
LinkedIn, Instagram.
Not. I'm awful right
Private.
now. I don't do any of the social media stuff. I don't do any of that. So, if they want to learn more about the neighboring stuff, they can go to artofneighboring.com, that document that you have. But I'm not doing any of the social media stuff right now, which has been a gift to my soul.
Awesome. That's great. That's good. Well, thank you for giving up your soul and an hour of yourself today to be on this podcast. The Art of Neighboring, I should mention it as well. I mean, it's still out there. It's still being bought. I think over 250,000 copies ish, give or take 50,000.
200. Yeah, let's say 200. Yeah.
200. But it's impacting people today. Just it's an encouragement to live on mission, to know your neighbor, and you can't love your neighbor unless you know your neighbor. So
that's right.
Dave, thank you. Look forward to seeing you on the other side, and just keep up the good work, my friend.